Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. So, alhamdulillah, we have completed the hadith up until the hadith of Usama. The hadith of Usama 160. This numbering, I think, is a bit different from the numbering I have. But anyhow, the hadith of Usama is completed. The following hadith, باب قول النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم من حمل علينا السلاح فليس منا. He says this chapter talks about the Prophet saying من حمل علينا السلاح فليس منا. Whoever carries a weapon against us, he is not one of us. Okay, it relates to the previous hadith of Usama when he accidentally or inadvertently killed that person during combat because after he uttered the testimony of faith. So here, من حمل علينا السلاح فليس منا. Whoever carries a weapon, fights against us with weapons, he is not one of us. Because the weapon can kill. And then it's not like a regular fight. People just fighting with their arms. That can happen. But to actually carry a weapon like a knife or a gun and go against people, then he's not one of us. And Ibn Umar, النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم قال من حمل علينا السلاح فليس منا. Another narration, من سل علينا السيف فليس منا. Whoever yields a sword against us, he is not one of us. So these are three hadiths with the same narration or the same meaning. And there's another one that says من حمل علينا السلاح فليس منا ومن غشنا فليس منا. He added, and whoever deceives us, he is not one of us. And then another hadith says, another hadith, Abu Hurairah says that the Messenger ﷺ was passing by the market and he saw somebody selling some food, maybe some grain or some grain, and it was a big heap of grain. And then Prophet suspected that this grain was wet, at least on the bottom. And if the grain is wet, it will rot quickly and will not be edible. So he actually stuck his hand into the bottom and he felt it came out wet. فنالت أصابعه بللا فقال ما هذا يا صاحب الطعام. He said to the seller, what is this, O owner of these grains or this food? He says أصابته السماء يا رسول الله. He says I had it like this, but it rained and it got wet. قال أفلا جعلته فوق الطعام كي يراه الناس من غش فليس منا. He says, why don't you bring the wet grain on the top rather than leave the dry grain on the top and deceive people? He says you should put it on the top, the wet grain, so that people see it and know what they're buying. Whoever deceives, the first one says man ghashana, whoever deceives us, meaning Muslims, but here he made it more general. Man ghasha, whoever deceives in general is not one of us. And that applies to deceiving. That applies to deceiving Muslims or non-Muslims. Applies to deceiving Muslims or non-Muslims. I'm just reading the hadith that say laysa minna, and then explain what laysa minna means. Not one of us, what it means. In another hadith it says laysa minna man darab al-khudud. People sometimes when there's something really bad happen to them, they go like this and they slap their faces. It's in some cultures they do that. This is called ضرب الخدود or لطم الخدود. ليس منا من ضرب الخدود. Whoever slaps their face due to some awful news that came to them or something bad that happened to them, ليس منا من ضرب الخدود أو شق الجيوب. This is called جيب. This opening. وليضربن بخمرهن على جيوبهن. This جيب means the opening of the shirt from the collar here. It's called جيب. When the ayah says وَلْيَضْرِبْنَ بِخُمُرِهِنَّ, the khimar, the غطاء in the ayah of hijab, talking about the khimar, whatever covers the head, cannot cover the head and then leave a gap like this where this part of the neck or the upper chest is apparent. No, it has to be covered. It has to be covered. Whether we say it covers like this or we say it covers like this. So it could be understood both ways, and that's why both forms of hijab are acceptable. Either you cover, but you have to cover this. She has to cover the upper chest as well, the neck and the upper chest, called nahr. Nahr is this part here, and the clothing is called jayb. It says ليس منا من لطم الخدود أو شق الجيوب أو دعا بدعوى الجاهلية, or kept on yelling and wailing like the people of the pre-Islamic period. When somebody dies, they used to wail and so much and raise their voices. That's all forbidden. And another hadith in the Rasulullah برئ من الصالقة والحالقة والشاقة. A saliqa means the one who raises her voice in calamity, yelling and wailing. والحالقة, some women in Arabia, when something bad, or her husband dies or son dies, they used to shave their head bald, called al-haliqa, to show that they are grieving. والشاقة, again, shaqa means the one who tears her clothing for the same reason. One time Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, Abu Musa, he passed out and his wife started yelling, crying loudly and yelling. When he woke up, of course he was informed what she did. He says to her, ألم تعلمي وكان يحدثها أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أنا بريء ممن حلق وسلق وخرق. He says, did you not know that the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم says that أنا بريء means I have nothing to do with the one who shaves the head, or salaqa means yelling, raise her voice with wailing, وخرق, or tear her clothes. Anyhow, ليس منا أو أنا بريء means that I have nothing to do with them, or ليس منا is not one of us means that he's not according to our teaching, he's not following my teaching. Doesn't mean ليس منا he's a kafir, does not mean he's a total disbeliever. If he does that out of conviction that istihlal, that it is halal, and he totally disregards the teachings and says, no, I have nothing to do with these teachings, I think it's proper and I will do it, there's nothing wrong with it, although we tell him that we have many hadiths that say this is haram, he says no, this is halal, that's called istihlal, that's changing the deen of Allah, that becomes kufr. Then laysa minna becomes kufr, that's not a Muslim anymore. But the vast majority don't say that. The vast majority do it, and sometimes they just cannot control themselves, or they haven't trained themselves to restrain themselves, so then becomes a sin. فَلَيْسَ مِنَّا here means they are not following my teachings, they are not following my way and tradition and sunnah. You follow? That's why. But it's a strong form of warning, because he's telling you, you're not, just like when you tell your son, if you do this, you're not my son. But it doesn't mean that he's not your son in reality, but you're not like me, you're not following my teachings, you haven't listened to what I've said. You saw? You follow that? So, laysa minna. I think this explains those hadiths that say laysa minna, or ana bari. Yes, ana bari means I distance myself from them, they're not according to my way. Also, it means that whatever punishment may befall them from Allah, here or in the hereafter, I have nothing to do. I have discharged my responsibility and warned you. So, which means that just like when you advise somebody, give him advice, don't do this, otherwise this will happen to you. And then he doesn't listen and he still does it, and something bad happens to him, you say, I have nothing to do with you, I've warned you. So this is the other meaning of ana bari. I'm free of responsibility towards you. I've discharged my responsibility towards you, and you're the one who did not want to listen. We'll stop here, inshallah.